As you are well aware, tonight is just a night for people to get information, to learn about what lice is, what it isn't. I don't know, put a lot of myths to rest and have an opportunity to really get up close and personal and understand it and answer any questions you may have. So I have here tonight with us, we have Carrie, who's one of our nurses from our school district, and she will be going through a short presentation with you and then demonstrating how to look through the hair. And I was prepared to show it on the big screen because I didn't know how many, but I think people can just stand around and watch. It's not necessary. So with that, here's Carrie. Carrie, thank you so much for coming tonight.
I've turned into the resident nurse lice expert, so that's why I can speak to you, but I do want to introduce Marianne. Marianne is the district nurse that's actually assigned to your school, so she's the one who deals with those issues that happen here. I'm currently working at Fairlands, Moore, and Amador, so we're a little spread out. There's only a few, so we'll just kind of go casually. If you guys have questions as I go through, feel free to ask.
Connect your tablets. I'm going to turn off the front lights just so you guys can see the screen without your asking. All right, you can help her connect.
You guys can hear me okay, right? Yeah, I was a teacher before I was a nurse, so I can do my teacher voice, no problem. So our goals tonight are just to share some information, review prevention and treatment guidelines, and answer any questions you guys might have. Head lice has been with us since humans evolved. It's been a long time. They have adapted themselves to live with us, so eliminating them really would be pretty much impossible, but we can reduce how often they occur. And it really takes a team effort to reduce the incidence of lice. That includes education, really reducing the spread. Frequent surveillance means checking regularly, and we're going to talk about that a lot. Sharing information and treating them effectively when they do occur is how we can reduce how often we have them. Okay, so test first. True or false? Head lice can jump. False. They can only crawl. They cannot fly or jump. That's good news for us. They would be much harder to control if they could fly or jump. Right? Head lice can survive for several days away from the head.
True. False.
False. They will die in about a day if they are away from the head. You guys are good.
Did you get that right?
Right. All people with head lice frequently scratch their head.
True. False. We're all.
You're saying it's false because I said all people, right? Yeah. It's false. Actually, although scratching is a common symptom you'll see, it takes about 6 weeks for most people to start scratching once they get their first case of head lice. So they've had it for a long time without scratching. And some people never scratch. They never get sensitized to the head lice, so they never itch, they never scratch. They can have them for a long time without knowing it. It's similar to mosquito bites, how some people are really sensitive and will get big welts and scratch a lot, and some people won't. Head lice can live on hats and in carpets. False. Again, once they're away from the head, they die very quickly. Head lice are selective about the heads they live on.
Everybody's in the false. This is a trick.
False. Head lice don't care. They don't care if your hair is clean or dirty. They don't care if you color your hair. And they're not really particular about if you use gel or mousse or hairspray or that kind of stuff. They really just don't care that much. They'll take anybody almost. Okay, so I have some good pictures. Here's one. Okay, so basic facts. General thing that research will tell us is about 1 in 100 students each year will get head lice. That number is a very, very fuzzy number. Because head lice do not cause any diseases, there is not much effort spent in tracking how often they occur. So that number comes from sales of Rid and Nix products to get rid of head lice. So how accurate that number is, probably not that accurate. There's a picture of the family. The female is the one that's a little bit bigger. The male is a little smaller. And the little guy there is called a nymph. That's like a child head lice that hasn't turned into an adult yet. And they have 6 legs. They are tannish to grayish white. They do alter their color a little bit based on the hair that they're in, so they can hide and camouflage themselves a little bit. Females live about 4 weeks, and again, they die quickly. Not a sign of poor hygiene. There's a lot of stigma with getting head lice, and they're not related to that at all. So we are trying to get rid of that stigma so people will share information. They cause no diseases that we know of, so they're not like mosquitoes. They can't spread things. They feed, they bite you, inject a little bit of saliva and suck out a little drop of blood every few hours. They are most active at night, so sometimes kids who have them will not sleep well, and they'll be irritable because it's keeping them up, and they might not realize what's keeping them up. And like I said before, it takes 4 to 6 weeks when you get them the first time before you start itching. This is one reason why they spread so quickly, is because kids will have them for a long time before anybody realizes they have them, and they have all that time to spread them around before we figure it out. And a trivia fact for you, African Americans have an oval-shaped hair shaft, and when those lice grab onto the hair, the ones in North America are adapted for a round hair shaft. So head lice in North America cannot hold on very well to African American heads, so they don't get them. In other parts of the country, the reverse is true. So it depends on how most of the hair is in that area. These are nits. Nits are the little eggs that they lay. This one is magnified and blown up a lot. When you see a nit, you can't tell by looking if it's an old nit, a new nit, if there's something in there that's alive, if it's already hatched, if it's old and dead and never hatched. Without a microscope, you can't tell. The lice lay them very close to the scalp, so within like a half a centimeter is where they lay them. If you find them more than a centimeter away from the scalp, they're not viable, they're not going to survive, because they basically incubate from the warmth of the scalp. So without that incubation, they won't hatch. So if you see them a few inches down the hair shaft, they're from an old infestation, not a current one. The gold standard for diagnosing head lice is actually finding a live crawling louse on somebody's head. But they are very hard to find because they run fast and they avoid light. And when you start checking for them, they will try and scurry and run to the other side of the head. So it is tough if you don't have a large infestation sometimes to find them. Often people will confuse them with dandruff, with bits of hairspray, with bits of gel that are left in the hair. Sometimes insects get blown into the hair like aphids, and people will find one and think they have lice and they don't. When we look at the picture, the nit is laid on the side of the hair shaft. It doesn't circle the hair shaft. So if you see something that's kind of even around the hair shaft, it's not a nit. Also, they are very firmly attached. You cannot move it up and down the hair shaft. It is stuck. The glue they use to hold those things on hold really well. You have to really tug hard to get a nit off. So if you can move it, it's not a nit. A lot of people, when they are taking nits off, will just take a pair of scissors and cut that strand of hair instead of pulling the nit off. Okay. We will get cases where parents report having lice over and over and over again, and sometimes that's just because they are misdiagnosing it. They think they have lice, but they don't really have lice. Maybe they have a case of dandruff, and then they keep treating it with the lice medication, and it irritates their scalp more, so they get more stuff on their hair, more dandruff and things like that, and it could be a problem. Okay. Here are a couple of things that might get mistaken. If you look on the comb, you can see the hair cast. That's just a piece of hair debris that's there. A DEC plug is kind of an oily plug that comes out around the hair shaft also. Those are not nits.
Those are the ones that are tough to get out.
Yeah, they can be tough to get Okay, and life cycle, after a knit is laid, it takes 8 to 9 days for that egg to hatch, and then it becomes a nymph. And then after it hatches, it takes 9 to 12 days to become an adult that can reproduce. The life cycle is important to know when we talk about treating it, because we have to make sure that we get rid of them before they become adults, so we don't start the cycle again. As far as how they go from person to person, the head lice aren't people. They are not living in our schools, on buses, in movie theaters. That's not where they are. The children bring them wherever they go. Almost always it takes direct contact, head-to-head contact with somebody who has head lice to give it to somebody else. That's actually a really good thing for us because it does help us limit the spread. You can get head lice by sharing scarves or hats, but because head lice are alive, living creatures, they don't leave a nice warm head where they have a good source of food and heat easily. They want to stay there because they're safe. Occasionally one will get on a hat or on a scarf and you can pass it from one person to another, but it's not the most common way. And there's been a lot of studies done where they look at carpets in classrooms and they don't find them there, so that's good news for our students. We want to focus on the most effective ways to reduce the incidence, and that's to share information, to check your kids often, and to treat them effectively when they do occur. Really, really important to get rid of the stigma and to have parents tell each other when their kids have head lice. We like them to share with the school, we like them to share with each other, and it's actually a little tricky because you have to remember that your kids have probably had them for 6 weeks. So you have to go back through and try and think of every place they've been for the last 6 weeks. That's difficult sometimes to remember everybody. Relatives are a common source of where they come from. Sleepovers. There was a Girl Scout event a couple of years ago where they all camped out at the fairgrounds there. That caused a whole wave of stuff going on. So it's a lot. And they occur mostly from kids from 3 to 11. That's the highest age bracket. So good news that once you make it out of elementary school, you'll probably see them less.
Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Is there a reason why 3 to 11?
You know, it's their behavior. Once the kids get a little older, they're better about their personal space. The younger kids just aren't so good. They just touch heads more often.
Hug each other.
They're just...
Middle school's possible, it's just not as...
Most of the middle school and high school kids who we see that get them have siblings in elementary school. So it does happen, but there's usually a source. Inside the home, very common. Lots of our kids who get them, their parents get them too. Okay? Because that's where you have that kind of close contact, right? You cuddle with your kids, it's easy to spread that way. Okay, so our procedures, what we do at school in the elementary, everything we do at Health Services, we have to follow our guidelines that we get, particularly from the Public Health Department and also some state and national organizations. We will check students who have symptoms, so we will have teachers that call the health office and say, oh, Sally over there, she keeps scratching her head, I'm a little worried, and our health clerk will check and see if they see anything. If we do find head lice on a student, we notify the parents, we give them some information on how to treat, and they have the choice to either pick up the child immediately or to pick up at the end of the school day and begin treatment. We recheck them when they return to school. Mostly that's just to check in, talk to the child, make sure that something happened at home. And then we will recheck in 7 to 10 days to make sure the problem is still controlled. And we send a lice letter to the classroom parents where that occurred. Any extreme cases, a few times a year in the school district, we will get a kid that the health clerk looks at and goes, oh my goodness, they're everywhere on this kid's head. And in that case, they will call the district nurse and we will intervene to immediately talk to those parents and have them come pick up and educate the parents so they know what's going on. The district nurses also work with parents who have been unsuccessful in getting rid of the head lice. Our best recommendation is for you to check your kids once a week to catch a problem before it happens. Remember that when you do get a lice letter from school, that information is 6 weeks old. That kid has been sitting in class with head lice, they've been playing, they've been doing all your activities they do after school, all the Girl Scouts, all everything. That happens, whatever happened 6 weeks ago. So weekly check by parents are our number one thing that we would love to see happen. Once you get good at doing a check, and we'll do a demonstration of one at the end of the presentation, but once you get good at doing them, it doesn't take very long. What I do with my daughter is on Friday mornings, I just come in when she's getting ready and I just offer to brush her hair, and while she's there, I just kind of go through and take a peek and make sure that everything's okay. It doesn't take too long once you get good at it. The first few times, it takes a little while. Okay, how to check, good lighting is important. They are hard to spot. Sometimes some blonde hair are really hard to spot because they're light and they hide really good. They are usually found at the nape of the neck and behind the ears, but they can be anywhere. Again, focus on close to the scalp because that's where the nits get laid. The live ones are hard to find at the beginning. Another picture. And here's a picture. This is dandruff in hair, so this is something that could be mistaken for lice. But again, the dandruff will move on the hair shaft very easily. You can kind of blow on it and it will move around. These are nits. You can see the tiny little circles on there. Those are old nits because they are further than 1 centimeter from the scalp. So that's from an old infestation, not a current one. She might have some that are closer to the head too. This is a blown up image of a louse being removed with a nit comb, and we'll show you a nit comb. They're good at removing both the live ones and the nits. Okay. So treating effectively, if you do find head lice in your household, make sure you check everybody in the household. And if you find them, treat them on everybody at the same time. So don't treat some people on Saturday and some people on Wednesday. You'll just start reinfesting each other again. And you need to treat the environment as well. For clothing and bedding, they need to be washed and dried. Anything that was used in the last 48 hours. Remember, the lice die quickly, so you don't have to go back, wash everything in their closet, just the stuff they've used in the last 48 hours. Vacuum furniture, wash combs and brushes. You can put them through the dishwasher. That's a good way to do it. Any object that you can't vacuum or wash, you can put in a bag. Some places say to keep them for 2 weeks in the bag, but remember they die pretty quick. Do not use the lice control sprays. Any kind of fumigation are not healthy for the kids at all. Some NIC sells them and RID sells them, but they're not recommended. Choices and what you want to use to treat. Reticulicides, that's a fancy name for the lice shampoo and medications that kill head lice. Over-the-counter NICs is the most recommended by our pediatricians. There are a few prescription products available. The manual method means that you are wetting the hair, maybe putting a conditioner on it and using a lice comb and carefully combing out the hair. That's for parents who do not want to put any of the reticulicides on their kids' heads. And we'll talk about some over-the-counter ones. First-line treatment. So when kids get head lice for the first time, what the pediatricians will tell you to do is to use the over-the-counter. The negative is that they don't kill 100% of the eggs, so you do need 2 treatments. And if you don't follow the directions, it's not going to work very well. You guys have awesome. These are the directions for NICs because it's the most common one. By the way, we're going to post the PowerPoint so you can get it off the website to go back and get it. Main thing with the NICs is that you cannot use a conditioner or a conditioning shampoo before you put it on, and you can't use it for several days after. The Nix has a property that will help control lice, has like a residual property to it, and it won't work if you have any conditioner on there. You put it in starting at the back of the neck, leave it on for 10 minutes, rinse with warm water. They suggest you rinse like over a sink so that the medicine just kind of falls off and doesn't go all down your body, so you're not exposing yourself to too much of it. Right, so the package directions on Nix will say to repeat if live lice are seen 7 days or more later, but the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends always to do a second treatment. Right. The idea is that the first application will kill any live lice and it will kill most of the eggs. And then if you treat again 7 to 9 days later, you will kill any eggs that survived and hatched before they can become adults and lay more eggs. So if you do the two treatments a week apart, you'll cover your bases on any of the eggs that may survive. Nit removal, if you do the 2 treatments and you follow the directions as you're supposed to, nit removal is optional because the nits that are left will not be viable. The vast majority of our parents remove all the nits because they don't want nits in their kids' hair. And it makes it easier to check later if you want to make sure that there's no active thing going on. If you've taken out all the nits, you'll know if there are new ones. But it is very time consuming and it's not required for treatment. Okay. So the manual method, again, is if you don't want to use a particular side, it requires a lot of time, a lot of diligence. You have to do it at least 3 times a week for at least 3 weeks to make sure you've completely gotten rid of them. So it is an option. There are a lot of alternative treatments that people will talk about.
Can I ask a question about the manual method? So while
Yes.
you're going through those treatments, do you need to continually vacuum and do like a washing?
Yes,
and all
you
that?
need to continue vacuuming and do the washing, everything, because you haven't used anything to get rid of the live ones. You're relying on your combing to get rid of the live ones. And because they move around,
Right.
you're a focus on.
So how often would you vacuum? I mean, if you're saying every 3 days, would you just vacuum the same days? you're
Yeah, I would
treating?
do it every 3 days. Just 3 times a week. When you do the treatment, I would vacuum after and wash it. Okay, so alternative treatments. Mayonnaise is a common one. People will put mayonnaise all over the kid's hair. Sometimes they'll wrap the head in saran wrap after they put the mayonnaise on and let them sleep that way overnight. That doesn't work. They're probably well conditioned and their hair's probably nice and soft the next day, but it's not going to do anything for the lice.
Have to wash your hair at dawn to get the grease out.
Tea tree oil is another one. That one is not well studied. There's been a few studies that said it might be effective, but you have to be careful with it because it's, even though it's natural, if you have it in a strong dose, it can be dangerous. There's a method called the Nouveau method, which was developed by a doctor on the peninsula. And that's you take Cetaphil and you put it all in and you comb it out and then you blow dry it until the hair's dry. That one has not been well tested either. Some people will shave the kid's head. That works. Traumatic, especially for the girls. So we don't recommend that, but that alternative method does work. Occasionally somebody will put something like gasoline on their kid's head and do something really dangerous to try to get rid of them. So we like to stick with the safe approved methods.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Okay. What's the latest information on, I went through the
That I know.
shampoo thing twice and all that, and it didn't work, and our pediatrician said that a lot of them are becoming immune to the medicine, the shampoo medicine.
Yeah, so resistance does develop, unfortunately. So we'll talk about the options if you do get resistance. Just like, the bacteria will develop resistance to the antibiotics, the head lice can develop resistance to the over-the-counter products, especially because that's what's used most often. Most pediatricians, the guidelines are if you follow the directions exactly and you treat twice and you're still seeing live lice on the kid's head, that's a sign that there's resistance that's developed. and they will move on to a prescription product. The goal is to limit the use of the prescription product so that they don't develop resistance to the prescription products. Okay? So these three are kind of the most common ones. Lice just came out. That one is a 10-minute treatment. This research study, they didn't remove any of the nits, and they were 76% were lice-free. Natroba is another one. 1 to 2 treatments. Also, they say that nit removal is not necessary with that one. And then the Ovid is almost 100% ovicidal, which means it kills the eggs. That one can catch fire though, and the kid has to sleep with it overnight, so physicians like to avoid that. There haven't been any cases where any kids have been harmed by it, but you can imagine they're still a little reluctant on that one. So we don't see it.
So just a question, so, I mean, 76% lice-free doesn't seem like it would get you there.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like enough, does it?
So, I mean, it seems to me then the best thing to do is really, you can use these things, but you really should be doing the manual method too. Otherwise, you could be a month in and only.
Most things are a combination.
Yeah.
It's really, you have to be diligent, and after you treat, you have to keep checking. You need to check, for several weeks afterwards to make sure your problem is really taken care of. So, I think it's the checking, really just following up and making sure it's successful. And the nurses meet regularly. We meet about 4 times a year with a group of local pediatricians. And they have not reported to us that they're seeing a lot of resistance to the over-the-counter products in this area. They seem to be mostly successful. And if you can stick with the over-the-counter products, those are the safest products. That's why they're over-the-counter. We would recommend doing that. But if you do follow directions and you're still seeing live ones. Also, I will note though that like with the nicks, it takes several hours to kill the lice. So if you treat and then look right away, you might see some crawling around, but they will usually die afterwards. So you don't want to try it immediately. It does take a little ways. So additional ways to reduce incidence. As I said, most of the transmission occurs from direct head-to-head contact, but it can happen from sharing hats, scarves, and things like that. So why do it, right? You try to teach the kids not to share that stuff.
What about with backpacks and stuff? Like we're here at school, we take backpacks side by side, kids pile backpacks on top of each other.
Again, it's rare because when the louse falls off a head and lands on a backpack, it's almost always one that's dying. That's why it's fallen off. So the risk is very low, but anything we can do. I mean, if you have a bad thing going on, you do whatever you can do to reduce it. But it's the head-to-head, whatever we can do to reduce that. That's why girls get them more than boys, because girls do things like they lay on the bed and read together. Boys are all throwing the ball and tumbling, and they just don't do as many things like that.
What, from a teacher perspective here, if they find that they have a lot of an active case in the classroom, what are things that they can do?
In a classroom where kids are sitting in desks and tables, it's a very rare thing for lice to get transmitted. We strongly encourage that teachers not have pillows and couches in their classrooms, not just for head lice, but for all sorts of germs. Any kind of surface that you can't clean really well, as far as spreading the flu and colds and head lice, we would like to see those all be gone. That would probably be the most important. Okay, so if you treat and it doesn't work out, these are some of the reasons. One, you didn't eliminate the lice. And we talked about that. It could be resistance. It could be the directions were not followed. Other possibility is the child was reinfested. So you took care of it in your house, but either they found a new place to pick up some new ones, or they got them from the same place they got them from the first time. So we had a case with a family in our district that every 4 to 6 weeks, their kids were getting head lice. And talked to the parents, they were very diligent, they followed all the steps, they got rid of them each time, and 4 to 6 weeks later, they would get them again. And do it all over again, and 4 to 6 weeks later, they would do it again. Okay? So the mom kept track of everything the kids went, and talked to all the parents, and still. As it turns out, where were the kids going every 4 to 6 weeks? they were going to spend the weekend at grandparents' house. So what had happened was probably the first time the kids had them, they were nice and shared them with grandma. And nobody thought to check grandma and all this. So every time the kids went back, grandma shared them right back. And on and on. So it happens, and it can, like I said, 6 weeks is a long time. It can be hard to figure out where they're getting them. So again, either the close contact was not treated or it's a new source of infestation. So if you keep getting them again, then you have to figure out, did I not treat them well? Are they still in the house? Or did they just get reinfested? It can be tough. And again, misdiagnosis, sometimes people think they're getting them again and again, and they're not. Okay, so here's our case study. Your child's best friend has head lice. They have had several sleepovers and play dates in the last 6 weeks. So you get the phone call, somebody shared the information, they did what they're supposed to do. What do you do? Ideas? Check, yes, a careful check, a very careful check, not a quick check, but a very careful check like we'll show, okay? If you find them, what do you do? Oh, we have an answer in the back, yes.
Treat them.
Treat them, yes, before you treat them though, we're gonna do that. Who else are you gonna check?
Family, everybody.
Everybody in the household, you're gonna check everybody in the household,
Wash the sheet.
okay? Okay, so you're going to check. If they're not there, you don't find them, you're going to check again, okay? Because if your kids go to a sleepover on Friday night and you check them on Sunday, you're probably not going to find anything even if they've been infested because they probably just have one pregnant louse on their head that you're probably not going to see, okay? But if you wait and you do your weekly checks in a couple weeks, then you'll see the evidence. Because again, it's hard to find, if you just have one on your head, it's really hard to find it. So you have to keep checking. If you do find it, check all the members, begin treatment on everybody at the same time, wash all the clothes and laundry in the 48 hours, vacuum, notify people, and don't forget to retreat in 7 to 10 days. That was a lot of advice. Is everybody itchy?
Yes.
Totally normal to be itchy. Everybody gets that way when we talk about it. No, you need help to check yourself. You need somebody to do that for you because you got to get behind your ears and in the back here,
I know people who will take the lice comb in the shower and they'll actually comb through their hair, which is hard to do if you don't have a mirror just to make sure you get it all, but they do that.
You can feel them.
What do you have with the girlfriend later?
If when you're checking hair, if you pull down, it feels like you have, like there's a little knot in your hair. Like the one single strand of hair knotted itself just one time. It feels like a bump like that. So she's checking. That's okay.
The last time that we actually had lice in our house, my middle schooler brought it in, and initially I didn't think it was lice because I was able to actually move the knit up and down the hair shaft. And then I thought, okay, that's not it. That's like one of those strange things. And then as I started going through and realized, and then when I saw the live one, it's like, oh my God, it is actually. So it may not be always, but I've been able to pull it. It's not easy, but you can.
Yeah, they will, but you can pull them because that's, that phrase, nitpicking, right? That's what it comes from. It comes from picking nits off people's heads. So you should know that. So you can, but you have to tug to get it down. You can't, like
That's
Dan
what the
does.
scissors kind of.
Yeah, like I said, you can just cut off that hair strand.
No, I was just going to say, so it was interesting your comment about they usually don't transfer from like dress-up clothes and stuff because my daughter goes to aftercare and so every day I pick her up she's got some outfit on from the drawer and so I've always been concerned that that's a source and it's a tough subject to broach with programs. So
Pouches and stuff in there.
yeah, how likely are the dress-up clothes to be an issue? Is it more than like hugging on each other?
It's way more of the hugging, way more. It is possible with the dress-up clothes, but it's just not as there. It would, if we look at a kid that has, if we look down and there's like 100 on his head, right? then we pull that kid immediately, because if you have that many, then the chance goes up. But because of the hygiene practices in North America, that's a rare thing. In parts of the world where they don't comb their hair every day and do that stuff, people will get infestations like that. We don't see it here, so.
So
It
what
just
happens
doesn't
like
happen.
in a kids club situation where it's a place that a child spends a great deal of time, just like at home, right? So they should technically be treating kids club like they would the home, vacuuming and washing things. Is that
They do
correct?
vacuum kids club.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they will vacuum, if they get a case, they will vacuum the sofa that's in there.
Yeah.
So that is a policy, like if
That's
it's found in, okay.
Yeah, we get parents who will, call up and demand that we get the exterminators out to fumigate the place. And that call comes often, you laugh, but that call comes often. And that doesn't do any good.
Yeah.
The vacuum is what will work on the sofa.
Well, the vacuum
Don't do
works
that.
in your home, it'll work.
Right.
Exactly.
And is there
They
a
just
similar
vacuum.
policy for if it's found in a specific classroom, if a child is identified as having had lice? Is there a way that they,
Again, there shouldn't
Classroom.
be any sofas in the classroom. They're not found in carpets, so
yeah,
we'd like to see.
so in, okay.
Often the sofas though do have slip covers on them.
That's an improvement, but how often on slip?
But then the slip covers come off and be washed.
I would agree with
Or a
that.
real leather.
And the ones that fall off are the ones that are old and dying, so they're not as likely to,
I struggle with the shampoo thing because my daughter has ungodly amounts of hair. And so I had to use like 2 bottles just to, and then, try to get it all in her hair. I think that's where.
Yes. Some families will try to split a bottle, and that's one reason why it doesn't work. And they won't get rid of them because they'll try and use half on this kid and half on that kid, and you really need a full bottle. And sometimes 2. That's long hair.
So I have heard of people using the mayonnaise thing and the saran wrap, so they can't be suffocated on the head, is that?
No,
Okay.
you can't suffocate them.
But
That's
you
the,
can
that's
put
the
the stuffed
intent,
animals
is
in
to
a bag
suffocate
and
them.
throw them in the garage for a week and that will.
Yeah, because again, if
Because
they're
they're away
not,
from the head.
the nits aren't going to be incubated if there happen to be a nit, so they're not going to ever hatch if they're not close to the scalp for heat. And, they feed every few hours. They don't last very long if they can eat. So they die pretty quickly.
So all of that information though about like put hairspray in, put gel, and that's all, that's dousing it.
I think that came from the thing, what I talked about where African Americans, they don't get them much here. I think people first assume from what I read that it was the hair products that African Americans were using. That's why they didn't get them. So then people started to think, oh, well, I'll just put gel in my hair and then I won't get them either. But it's not about the hair products, it's about the shape of the hair shaft. So,
Carrie, can you give lice to your pet?
no, pets cannot spread
They have a
lice.
different kind.
Yeah, they don't know.
And pet lice don't come to humans.
Well, I know a lot of kids will snuggle with their dog or
Yeah.
lay on their dog,
They don't.
so
No, they are not a source of transmission.
good news.
Snuggle away.
So you talked about the color of the knit, so that is determined by the hair color, with the color of the knit, or
They
what?
seem to be able to camouflage themselves and change
lumps,
slightly.
yeah.
Like in the blonde hair, they look lighter. They're more like a white sesame seed looking than the dark hair.
When I check my kids, I have a much harder time on Carly than I do on my other daughter who's got darker hair, for whatever reason, her hair.
So on my hair, they would look a little lighter. I mean, they would be.
They would probably be a little darker on your hair. 'Cause they would be like, so they try to blend in.
Can you go
They're
back
very-
to the picture of the louse? So that,
You want the knit or the louse?
well, I think the louse, just so people can see what it is.
They.
The knit, I think we saw.
Yeah.
But I want to see
Hair
the.
color, so I mean. What about Karen's hair?
Mine would be orange.
There's a louse.
And they always look like that with the larger,
Yeah.
what is that?
That's what they look, that's a female.
Abdomen.
The females are a little bigger. They're apparently pregnant all the time, too. They just have to have one interaction and then they're pregnant for like life.
Oh, go back.
There's dandruff.
And so you talked about a flea comb, or, I mean, is that the type of comb you use, that's it?
So you can get, they sell knit combs. The metal ones are the better ones. They are super spaced, very, very close
It
together.
has a serrated edges,
And you have to go in right close to the scalp and pull through. You can also use flea combs that you get at the pet store. Those work as well.
The key is that the teeth are super close together.
So where would you find that?
Like, where'd you buy it?
Yes.
You can look online. You can go to the drugstores have them where they sell the medicines, the Nix and the Rid.
Do you want me to turn the lights back?
This one is called Nitch-Free Terminator. And I've heard from Kelly that it's a good one.
Okay.
So, they really have to be close.
The other thing about using those combs is you can't just comb this way. You actually have to take the hair and comb it from the side, each side, and also underneath, because they could be on any side of the hair shaft.
That's a really good point.
My skin's
So-
itching.
It does take a while, because the best, well, I'll show it in a minute. The best way is to section off the hair.
It's a process. They're interesting because, from a medical standpoint, they don't spread disease. They're really not, that big of a deal. But from a time perspective of how long it takes if you get them in your house to get rid of them, they're a huge deal. And from an emotional aspect, it's very emotional when your kids get these. Even though you know in your head that it's not anything you did, it's not anything they did, it still can be very emotional. So, big time. Other questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
more questions. So I apologize for this, but I keep going back to this like 78% thing with the prescription thing. So I'm assuming that the OTC stuff is less than that. So if you do end up getting lice, then it seems to me that the best way to ensure that you're going to get rid of it is to also come out all of it. Because if I'm only getting 8 out of 10 bugs, right, with whatever method I'm using, then I'm still got 2 running around laying more eggs. It seems like I don't know how you would ever break that cycle if you don't come out all the nits.
You have to do what you feel comfortable with. And like I said, most parents remove all the nits. Okay, that's the method that they go with. But really, it's the checking. You have to keep checking. It's really the treatment and checking. And that was with one treatment on the prescription. If you did 2 treatments with that prescription during the week part, then your percentages would go up. Any other questions? Okay. Kelly has volunteered to be our hair model. If anybody would like to stay to do a hair check on Kelly, it'd be lots of fun.
The other, oh, you mentioned earlier about how you check your daughter every Friday. And I think it's important that we get good at combing regardless of whether there's an active infestation, because that is one of the key things. And the last 2 times that I found stuff in my kid's hair, it was such a brand new case, it could have been there for less than a week because I was checking regularly and I barely even found the live ones, and it was just because I started finding the nit, so it was super brand new. So that's key too. It doesn't change the amount of work you have to do in terms of laundry and vacuuming and all that, but at least it's peace of mind that you've got less to actually get out of there.
Right, yeah.
So.
It's, the lice letters are a double-edged sword because we send them and then people get the idea that, oh, if there's no letter, then there's no lice here. But there's always lice here. Any school day of the school year, if we went and checked the kids in this school, we would find head lice in this school on any day of the year. Okay? So sending the lice letters, consider it just a reminder that you should be doing the weekly checks. Do not consider it to be, if I get a letter, then I'll check. Okay? Our fear with the letters is that people will only check when they get them, and by that time, it's been weeks. Okay.
Do you have any schools in the district that maybe send out reminders to the classrooms, hey, let's check this week,
Friday.
let's check on Friday. Is there a school that does But that's just something.
You know, sometimes they'll go out on the PTA parent newsletter. Sometimes, we did a bunch last year with, when we went through a whole process of looking at our procedures. But the fact is that we would have to send that every week, like, because you should check every week. So, you know, it's really a constant.
Unfortunately, we just have to consider that our kids are coming here any day, they will pick it up, so we might as well just start getting used to being routine and checking it.
But like in theory, like theoretically, in a vacuum, you could get rid of all the lights and not have a, I mean, I'm just asking the question because you're saying it's always around. It's not existing somewhere, it's just happening on our heads. It's
Well,
just going from head to head.
Yes.
Okay.
Until the, you know, child in the second grade classroom went to stay at their cousin's house who lives out in the county where they didn't do it, and then
Right.
boom, you have them back. So we're never gonna get
Right, in a laboratory, you can baby.
And a
We
laboratory.
make 3 people lice free if we, you know, like incubated them, right? But, okay, but we can't do that because this is not a closed environment.
It's really, it's that 6 weeks period that people have them and don't know. It's the 6 weeks where the kids are interacting and going and going. Summer camps to bring kids from all over the state together in one place. Let them spread the lights and send them home to their own places, right?
Come home with some East Coast lights.
Yeah.
They're little things.
They're different.
Okay. And, you asked about this brand. This is one that's really good, and I can show you. It's knit-free Terminator. And you can take down, the website is on the back if you want to look for it. That's the phone number, and there's the address. So then
They don't sell those in the store.
when you have it, you'll kind of start putting scallops. That's coming down. Always put the down, and you want to grab like a tissue. It's all.
They still like a injury so you want to
Brian, why don't you get checked? You don't have much hair.
You want to do
It's
it
like
every
I found my gel for
I haven't checked you. I haven't checked you up in a while either. Can I see your hair?
I had my
We have PTA meetings tomorrow, so I want to ask them to invest in that project. A quilting light with that big magnifying glass and a light. So when we're checking in the office, we can, it's well lit and magnified. I was going to go there. I had my pillow now.
Have those magnets
and the lights.
that go over
Yes.
their heads. That's the only way I got into that.
I've checked probably 100 heads after they've gone to nitwits. And I've only found nits on one kid after nitwits.
Yeah.
They're way better than that.
I'm like, because my daughter just has so much hair. I couldn't, in case you bought, you know, I was like,
Yeah.
donated it. So I watched that. I know they sell them like in Zambia, but it took her 2.5 hours to secure.
It would have taken me 8.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, it was, and she was amazing, so.
Hey, Adam, how do I make this go up there? And
Do you want-
I know how to do it with Apple TV
I guess
or
I'll
with
just
my
edit
iPad.
What do you want?
How do you make this connect?
You look
Do you
good,
guys want
Kelly.
to see?
You look good.
Because you know what?
She started backwards of how I was doing it.
And you know, everybody who does them kind of has their own method.
Do you want me to, like, get up in there?
I think it's just important that you do it the same way each time, so you don't miss anything.
And then, yeah.
And I always do, like I always have the kid, like get your head down. And I always separate the hair, and I always start at the back. Now, of course, when I'm checking at school, once I find them, I stop. Right? I don't have to count them and get a whole map of where they are in the head. So I do it. I have them separate, and I start at the back, and then I do behind the ears. So Kelly, I'm sure can give you
I do
the
it differently. I do it from the top of the head.
Yeah.
And I kind of will take one section at a time. Like I'll grab this section here and pin the rest back, and then I'll start from up here. My kids have typically had it in this area, not in the back of the head or behind the ears. And then I just go down section by section and then grab the next one and put this piece off so I kind of know what I've already checked.
Okay. So when I'm checking, a nice wooden stick is good. And what you do is you just slide it down so that you get a very thin layer of hair, and you just slowly move it across. So you're just like that, getting just a tiny bit so you could see if there's any nits at the base of the hair. I don't see any nits.
That's good.
So you don't use the knit comb to check?
You can use the knit comb to check. I like to do a visual check, but you can use the knit comb to check.
I'm better at checking than I am at combing, so I always check first, and if I see anything, then I comb. And combing for me tends to pull on my hair.
Marianne can check you.
I'd love to.
You want to be checked?
I do. I usually think about that.
Okay, and I just keep moving. I move all the way across, just keep going over.
OTTLITE.
So.
And then I will have the students with their head like this.
We all have
And I
to
move
put our
the
head
hair
on the table and.
Oh, yeah, we can't do that.
Helpful or not?
And get a headset.
Is that like helpful or not?
No.
What?
Sorry.
The other thing to know about those checks, like the research shows that when you just have volunteers come in and do that kind of stuff, they're wrong like 70% of the time. So like they tell people they have lice to
Until
go.
just a few years
They
ago,
miss
we
it.
used to have volunteers do the checks.
Well, so that's
But
my question, like,
it's-
I can remember when I was in elementary school, like lining up at the nurse's office with my whole class and they went and checked all our heads. So is that,
So the research shows
yeah,
that those kind of checks do not reduce the incidence of lice in schools. And I think you can kind of tell that, when they do that, they estimated that the nurse or whoever was checking had less than a minute per student
right,
to check. And it takes a lot. It takes more than a minute to check. So
right.
the research has said that that's not a good use of our time, and to spend our time on more education, and it's just not a good use of classroom time because it doesn't work. And kids who scratch too, you'll sometimes see little scabs because they've itched and broken the skin. And I just you just go through it slowly and slowly. And so then I would do this side, and then I would turn her over and make her do the other side. I go this side next, and then we do the same thing behind the ears. And then, that's a good sign of I haven't found anything yet, and then I start at the top. And I just separate the hair again, and I just start going through little tiny section of hair at a time. And flip it over.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Any questions? Yeah. If, when you have an incident where you're really checking and removing nits as you go, you put a movie on that the kids love, and you kind of make an evening of it.
So with boys, when they're wearing their hair shorter, I mean, the best check is obviously not going to be this intense.
Boys are way
I had to get you on,
In
Karen.
so many ways, they're easier, yeah.
It's not even comparable.
Yeah. So really, like, just almost like a visual. I mean, if they're wearing it pretty short.
Yeah, boys we go through fast. Boys are, yeah. Okay. You can just, do you want to come sit down?
I'm a little afraid.
Better to know.
It's just gonna let her already sleep.
Your scalp is red. I can tell you've been itching.
I know. Just the hood.
You look so fancy tonight. Over how glamorous she is. I don't know what my jeans on.
Good. Just a very red scalp.
And just right there where you
Poor Carly, she gets a lot of
how to wash kids, it's like,
Just know that every time you come in your comfy clothes and your ponytail.
And this is how I do it. My daughter, I don't pull out the wooden sticks with her because she'd run away from me. Right, every Friday. I just come and touch her hair and I go, and she's like, what?